Hey, everybody, it's Jay Scott from The Hook, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. We're going to change up the format here a little bit today for our new music spotlight. We do have an interview with Nick Reese from Joyous Wolf, joins us on our latest episode of the new music spotlight. And I'd like to welcome in frequent contributor Ari at A Night 1990 on Twitter. What's going on, Ari? How you been?
Hi, good. It's good to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, good to have you. It's been a bit. I know you've been busy with school and all things that are entailed with going to school. So it's good to have you on. It's good to hear your voice. Yep. And I know this is a topic that you've wanted to talk about for a while. This is one of your favorite new bands out there. That band is Joyous Wolf.
Yes. Yeah, I got into Joyous Wolf earlier this year through a friend who's also a musician. He played with them during a show, and I was just blown away. Their Mississippi Queen cover was the first song I heard, and it was so 70s. I mean, it's like it was their own 70s style. It was still original, but it was like a throwback to, classic rock.
That's one of the things we talked about in the interview that's coming up here is the slow hand Mississippi Queen sessions that produced those two songs, and how from those two tracks into the Place and Time EP, they almost completely evolved into something totally different. Because if you would have told me that Place and Time was going to sound like it sounds, which is a completely incredible record, I would have said no way. But they were able to evolve, and it's one of the things that Nick really talked about, putting no limits what they can do. They talked about their mission statement, about evolving, and about doing what they want to do and putting no limits on it. And you can totally tell from the transformation from those sessions with Slow Hand and Mississippi Queen to the EP, which is just a completely different animal.
Definitely. They have a few songs on YouTube that are technically unofficially, released. A couple of them. One of them is Sleep, Weep, Stomp, and another one is this really slow acoustic song called Wasting Sun. Fantastic songs, but they're all their beginning sessions, with around the time that Slow Hand came out, every single song was different stylistically. So when they released Place and Time, it was almost like, again, they totally did a 180 on their music style, and it was almost like you didn't know what to expect. But that's what I personally love so much about them, is because they have such an expansive, I guess is the word. They clearly have so many influences, and I think that's definitely something that's what makes them so different.
I agree. I don't think there's a new band out there that meshes the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s rock like Joyous Wolf does. I mean, you can tell what their influences are, right? You can hear the influences, but they make it completely unique to their own. It doesn't sound like anything's been rehashed, or it sounds like anything that they've done before. I mean, you could talk about the delivery, being very similar to Chris Cornell on a few songs, and you could talk about the guitar work. Yeah. But that's what makes it cool, because there's all these different elements, all the way from back to the 60s soul that he talks about in the interview, to the rock of the 70s and the 80s, and then the grunge era of the 90s. It's very unique, because there really hasn't been a band to come out that sounds like them. A lot of the new stuff coming out right now is very blues-based, and that's great too. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think they've really distinguished themselves, and I believe great things are on the horizon for this band, especially being a hard-working road band, doing 130 dates this year, 130 dates total this year. There are not a lot of new acts that do that many dates. That is a thing of the past, and that's how it's done. You want to talk about all the bands from the previous eras that have made it? They did stuff like this. They toured constantly. They toured everywhere. They played in front of different crowds, and they made it happen. And I think that's what they're really doing and aiming for.
And look who they're opening for. Right now, they're opening for Deep Purple, and a few months ago, I think they were opening for Slash and Miles Kennedy.
Yeah, and before that, they were opening up for Buck Cherry, which I unfortunately missed that show, but yeah, that would have been great. But yeah, no, they I mean, they're mixing it up. They're playing with different people. They're playing with one of the forefathers of hard rock and heavy metal, Deep Purple, and great opportunities and great things I think are coming for them. I just think they are a world-class talent. Their songs are so well crafted and so well arranged, so well written, so much depth. I talk about the influences again. I mean, you can dive deep into what you hear in all those songs, and it's just amazing.
I agree, definitely. The other thing I like so much about them is the interaction with their fans. Because they're a smaller band, naturally they can do this. But Nick Reese is actually at the merch table, and he's the one that sells everything to the fans, because they're still kind of a small band. They just have they don't have as big of a crew. I follow him on Instagram, and every night on his story there are always selfies with fans and videos and him just interacting with everybody, and that I always thought that is so cool. The way he takes the time to talk to everybody, and that's a really positive thing for the band. But it also shows how modest and down to earth they are as musicians.
They're definitely making a connection with the rock community. I talked about in the interview my son and his friends listening to their music. And that's always a good gauge when the younger crowd, the younger kids are listening to what's going on. You can always tell which bands are going to kind of rise, because anytime the young kids are listening, that's who, that's what they want, right? They want that generation to grow with them. But, getting back to the EP that was released earlier this year, when you talk about great songs and when you talk about just a great, solid debut effort, it does not get better than Place and Time. It really doesn't. There are many new acts that are coming out now that are good, and I enjoy them 100%. Joyous Wolf is that band that just wows you. You want to talk about wow bands? I think we talked about this in a previous episode about how there's not a lot of wow bands out there. I forget who I was speaking with about this. This is a wow band. This is a band you need to pay attention to. So what's your connection? How did you connect with them? I mean, you mentioned Slow Hand, you mentioned Mississippi Queen. How did you digest the debut EP?
Well, first two singles that came out were Quiet Heart and Place and Time, and the title track. Quiet Heart was one definitely... It reminded me of the music that I listened to growing up, because I listened to a lot of 70s music. I listened to Black Sabbath and Mountain, Deep Purple, all those bands. Not just that, just decades further in, too. And that song was pretty much like a combination of all the modern and old music I grew up with. It just, something just clicked in me, and I just fell in love with that song. Place and Time kind of sealed the deal for me, too. I love it's a perfect mix of classic rock and alternative.
Very new, very, very fresh. I know you're into Chris Cornell and Soundgarden and Audioslave, and I hear a lot of similarities with the delivery with Nick and how he approaches a song. And even
definitely.
Right, and even the guitar tone is very reminiscent of that 90s rock era. But it's also got that feel to it too as well. It's got that groove that is different than those grunge bands. It's got something deeper in there, which is different.
Yeah.
Which is very unique.
Yeah, and I think, if I remember correctly, Nick Reese is actually a huge Soundgarden fan.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. You can totally hear the influences there.
Yeah. And Undesired is one that definitely has that style in there too. That one's probably my favorite off of the album.
Yeah, Undesired, from what Nick said, was recorded or written during the Slow Hand Mississippi Queen sessions, and that's the only song that is in that sessions. And you'll be able to hear the interview here shortly. But I thought that was interesting because we talked about how they evolved from one session to another, and that was the only song that was really picked to continue on and be recorded in the second session. So that is interesting, because that is a very powerful song too. That's one of my favorites on the album. My favorite, and you know this, I've commented on it several times, is "Feel the Low."
Oh yeah. "Feel the Low."
Which is just a magnificent song, and it just grabs you. It really kind of touches, the heartstrings a little bit because you can interpret it in different ways. But it's a very emotional song, very emotional lyrics, very well done. Just a great tune all in all. I can't say enough about Joyous Wolf. They are different. They are a band that you need to take notice of and keep watching. I've looked at some of the...
definitely agree.
Yeah, I've looked at some of the live footage, and I made mention to this with Nick, and we kind of had a funny back and forth regarding this about, I grew up in the era of the frontman with the David Lee Roths and the Freddie Mercurys, and he has the influences of Elvis and Otis Redding and James Brown, and you can totally tell when he's on stage where those influences come from. Right, and how he vibes on stage and how he connects to the music and how he feels the groove of the music. And
definitely,
that's something that has been missing for a while in rock. A guy that is the front man who you can't take your eyes off because you want to watch him and you want to see what he's going to do. That hasn't existed for a while. And that's compliments to him because I don't think, based on what his answers were, that he purposely kept that in mind as he developed his own style on stage. It's something that comes out naturally and organically for him, which is even cooler. But there's something going on there. He's tapped into something, and that is how it used to be done. When you go to a concert, whoever you saw who had a front man, in large part, you would just watch the front man because it was just an amazing experience. Guy moving and grooving and dancing to the songs and getting the crowd and interacting with the crowd. There's a few new frontmen that do that, but I think Nick is in a class by himself, adding what was done prior to him with a new groove and a new vibe that he's kind of developed on his own.
I agree. You can definitely feel his energy. Even through the videos I've seen, it's like, wow, this guy he has so much energy, and you can tell he's so passionate about what he's doing. And he's an amazing singer. I have no idea how you can just bounce off the walls like that and still sound, still sing so well, And I'm dying to see him live. I know they're coming to Chicago sometime this week. I think tomorrow, actually. But
I think they're here on the 17th. Yeah. I think that's a Thursday.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to try to make the show. I got to rearrange my schedule. I'm going to try to make it. But yeah, it's a band that you really got to take notice of. A band that Definitely. Is just firing on all cylinders. I hate, I don't want to be the compliment machine, right? They're great, they're this, they're that. Right. But man, yeah. I mean, when you hear this band and you see this band, you cannot stop complimenting them, especially someone who, like myself, like yourself, who are passionate about music, who love seeing live music, who go to a lot of shows, who see a lot of frontmen, who see a lot of people singing. I mean, this will be, if I go to them on Thursday, this will probably be my 24th show that I've seen this year. And, I've seen a lot of people, and like you said, when I watch this stuff online, I'm wowed. I mean, it is a wow. It's a wow band. I mean, this is a band that, again, and we also touched on this too about new rock and roll. People got to start listening. This is a band you need to listen to. If you think rock and roll sucks, if you hear this band, if you think new rock and roll sucks, and you hear this band and you say they suck, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. There's something that's not working right with your brain. Okay, because this band is incredible. They are a phenomenal act. They have everything going for them in their direction, going for it. The future looks bright for them. We talked about that in the interview. Some interesting stuff. But yeah, this is somebody that you need to take notice.
Definitely. I could not have said it better myself.
Right, because you keep hearing that, right? And we've had a couple episodes where we've talked about the rock band killing rock and roll and not wanting to listen to new music. This is a band that you cannot pass up. This is a band that you need to listen to, because I don't know how you can think that new rock music is not good after hearing a band like this. I mean, this is where it's at. This is the goods. These guys are the goods. One of the things too that really impresses me about Joyous Wolf is their ability and their want to evolve. You know, they want to keep doing things different. They want to keep pushing themselves. Being on the road for 130 plus dates, having a solid debut EP to start out with to lay the foundation for their future. I'm really, really excited about the new material that they're going to be recording and where that's going to go.
Yeah, I have no idea. That's the other thing that I like so much about this band is you're not really sure what to expect. You know, the next album, whether it's their, I'd assume it'd probably be their full length, you know, first studio album. It'll probably be something. It might sound completely different because you never know. You know, every song. You know, it's not just the same, like I said, it's not the same style. They always bring something new to the table for each song, you know, and not just as a band.
I think that excites them too. You know, I kind of got that from Nick talking to him about how they want to continue to evolve and how it's kind of their mission to keep moving forward and moving forward differently and going forward with things that inspire them. It almost seems like it excites him, you know, and it probably excites them, you know, because I'm sure they have some sort of plan as to what they're going to do once they're done touring and they start writing in a different session. I'm sure they have a direction they want to go into, and I'm sure they're excited about it. But that is a testament to them, and that's a testament when you look back at a lot of the great bands that have graced planet Earth. You talk about the Zeppelins, you talk about the Deep Purples, talk about all these great classic bands. They always had a willingness to evolve. There's a few out there that didn't, and we know who they are. But they always wanted to push the envelope. They always wanted to push the envelope. And I think that is what's going to separate Joyous Wolf from the pack, is that they want to do things differently. They're not going to sit on their laurels and just be happy and live high on the hog. They want to keep moving forward. They want to keep developing their sound.
Exactly. They want to keep it fresh, not just for the fans, but for themselves too.
And for a new band to recognize that, a young band to recognize that, that's huge.
That is, yeah. That's a really good sign that a band will be incredibly successful, because you know that's kind of how you have to be as a band. Is, you know, you don't want to just do the same thing over and over, because not only eventually, you know, the fans might get sick of it, but, you know, I could imagine that the band themselves might get sick of it too. Just doing the same style, the same riffs, the same compositions over and over. And if you're not keeping it fresh, then, you know, you kind of lose the energy, you lose the passion.
Right. And it sounds like they have a pretty good grasp of what they want and how they're going to get there, meaning that they're not going to allow outside influences to tell them what to record and what not to record. You know, sometimes when you get a new band that is going to become successful and they've had some early success, the record company or the management company is telling them what to do and what to release. And it doesn't sound like, at least on Nick's part, that that's going to fly with Joyous Wolf and the members of the band. They want to do what they want to do. They want to go in the direction and evolve how they want to evolve and how they want to change and keep things fresh. I don't think anything's going to stop them from doing that, which is awesome. Controlling your own destiny is a huge thing in rock and roll. And I hope they keep doing that, and I hope that they stay true to themselves. I have no reason to think that they won't, but that is refreshing to hear from a young band like Joyous Wolf and the singer and Nick Reese.
I agree. It's an exciting time.
It is.
For a band like them and just for this era.
It is an exciting time. You know, there are so many great new bands coming out. I'll say it again. I've been saying it every episode for the last 4 or 5. Rock and roll fans, get off your ass, quit being lazy, and start listening to some new music. And you can start with Joyous Wolf. All right, Ari, we're going to wrap up here. Thanks for coming on. Enjoy the interview.
All right.
Let me know what you think. And for all those listening out there, enjoy the interview with Joyous Wolf on the New Music Spotlight with the Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. This is Jay Scott, and enjoy. Thank you. Hey, everybody, this is Jay Scott from the Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Hope everyone's having a great day. The band is from Southern California. The band is Joyous Wolf. The guest is the lead singer, Nick Reese. What's going on, Nick?
How you doing? I'm doing very well myself.
Appreciate you doing our New Music Spotlight. I've been a big fan of the band for a while now. Love your music. Love the EP. You guys just completely kick ass.
Well, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that, on behalf of myself and the others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we always start out with the same question for a guest who appears for the first time, and that is the essence of the show. And just like every great rock song has a hook, every rock fan has a moment, whether it's a song, an album, a band, or performance that hooked them on rock and roll. What hooked you?
Hooked me on rock and roll. I guess really early on in my life, I was a really young kid, and it was the first time I heard Elvis Presley.
Awesome.
I think that probably did it. I heard a lesser-known song by him, and it was called Good Rockin' Tonight. And it was one of his early songs on record recording. I just remember loving that song. And I have another song called Baby Let's Play House by him, and I think that was the beginning of my obsession with Elvis and my discovery of rock and roll.
And where did it go from there? What made you want to perform? Who was the artist that made you want to get up on a stage?
I mean, I just, through Elvis, I discovered I had this book called the Elvis Encyclopedia. It was an alphabetical sort of encyclopedia, obviously, of everything that had anything to do with him. So anyone that knew him, his friends, the industry people he looked up to, and through that I learned about people like James Brown, and I learned about people like all of the people that he loved, like Little Richard and Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Ray Charles, Otis Redding, all of the soul singers, and I just found my way through all of that. So I think it was just a combination of learning about all of those wonderful performers and listening to their music nonstop, and that's really all I asked for as a kid was their records, and that's really how I spent most of my time growing up, was just watching whatever I could find online of live performances and listening to their music on record.
Now, in people I've talked to with in the past and interviews that I've read, sometimes there's a moment where they have their early influences, like you mentioned Elvis and a lot of soul singers. Was there a song or another artist, or was it keeping in line with those same acts that made you want to write music, made you want to write a song?
Yeah, I mean, really, parents were really big on jazz and blues and early rock and roll, and that's what my diet was growing up, and it was just in me, everything from Frank Sinatra to, the Kinks, it was very, very much that. I didn't really get into the harder stuff until a little bit later in my life. I think it was all the culmination of that. It was just there, and it was just embedded in me from a really young age, and it moved me, and I think I just wanted that too. I wanted to move.
Well, you guys definitely do. I mean, I've made mention of how you guys are a new band, and a new band that's different from the others. And what I mean by that is I hear a lot of different influences in your music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and you're able to merge them together seamlessly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how you're supposed to look at music. Something I was watching an interview with Michael Bublé, of all people, the other day, and he was talking about Tony Bennett, telling him that, he goes, Michael, everybody steals from everybody. If you only steal from one person, you're a thief. And I think that's a very correct way of thinking. And I think we listen to a lot of music, especially between the four of us. That list is endless about all the things that we listen to separately and then bring together. It all just sits. I guess we just know how to maneuver through it in a way where it's us and not someone else.
The EP is Place and Time, features 7 great songs. There's not one weak track on the EP. One of my favorite songs.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it is tremendous. It really is. I mean, there's something new that you discover every time you listen to it. It has that ability. Each song has so much depth. The playing has so much depth. One of my favorite tracks is Feel the Low, which is just a very emotional song. Where was the inspiration from that track?
I mean, most of the time inspiration comes from how the song feels, and most of the music is written by the boys, and it's my job to interpret whatever that is. And Blake had actually written about 80% of that song. Everything but the bridge section had been written that he had written himself. I mean, as far as the music of it goes. And I don't know, the first time he played it, I do remember picking up on what he was putting down, if that makes any sense. And
yeah,
it's really just what I felt the music required.
What is the writing process for Joyous Wolf? I mean, do you guys each come in with ideas? Is it throwing stuff against the wall?
It's a million different ways. It can be any way. There have been times where I'll bring something in that's just a melody, and everything's starts around that, or Greg has something, or Rob has something, Blake has something, or we're just jamming together and something happens. There's no rhyme or reason to any of it. It just depends. We all write together.
As far as the history goes, for those that do not know who are listening, how was the band formed? Can you talk about the history of Joyous Wolf?
Yeah, I mean, we were all musicians playing in SoCal. We were all doing different things. I mean, Blake was doing heavy metal. Last band he was doing death metal. Crazy heavy stuff, and I was in alternative bands and whatever, and just trying to get something to stick, just trying to find something. Rob was playing in groups, and Greg was doing stuff too, and we all just kind of came together on a whim, because I have known Robert since I was a young kid, when I was 11. I met him in middle school, and then he went to a different high school, and he met Greg, and then randomly when I was 19, I met Blake briefly at a Guitar Center, and and then went to school and hated school, dropped out of school, called all these guys up, and that was the end.
And as far as the name goes, I know I've read an article or two about the interesting name that you guys have. Kind of a unique story. So if you can kind of share how that all came about.
We needed a name for our first show ever. And it was, I think either the next day or a couple days later, and we didn't have a name. So we went on bandnamegenerator.com and we hit the random feature, probably 1,000 times, and there was all these horribly laughable names, and then one of them was Joyous Wolves, and we didn't like the wolves, or like, because we don't want to be about animals. Got nothing to do with animals. It's an attitude, if anything, and this so Joyous Wolf. And we're like, okay, we'll change it later, and then we never did. So
I think it fits. I mean, when you listen to you guys and you see the name and the logo and the music and hear the music, I think it all ties together. So maybe there was a reason for the random band generator brought that to you guys.
I mean, I don't believe in any of that gobbledygook. I honestly think. I mean, back then we were a much different band than we are now. So you say it matches the music. I feel like the name really doesn't matter.
Right.
Really, what it means to us now is different than it was then. I mean, now it has a lot of principle. It represents who we are as people, as a group, as a group of creatives, and I think that's how we look at it. It's our attitude. And it's our identity, going forward.
That's one thing I did notice when you take a look at the tracks that you guys released previous to the EP, which was Slow Hand and then the cover of Mississippi Queen. And then you listen to the EP, there's a complete evolution in just a short period of time from the music that you released to the EP. How did that happen? I mean, like, are you guys always trying to push yourselves and expand yourselves in the horizons of the band to keep evolving? Because I always do appreciate an artist or a band that does evolve. I don't want to hear the same record on the first, album or the first release than I do on the 10th album or the 9th album or whatever.
Our mission statement is to continue to grow creatively. So most definitely, we're always trying to evolve. We're always trying to push ourselves forward, never backward. So as far as the Slow Hand and stuff, actually, it's funny because Undesired and Slow Hand are from the same session as Mississippi Queen. And then all the other stuff was written on the second session we did, which was months later after a fall tour we did. And we wrote all the songs except for Undesired and Mother Rebel. We wrote the other 5 songs on the EP in 2 weeks. Like, we wrote, recorded, mixed, done in like 2 weeks.
And what is the process of evolution for you guys? I mean, is it forcing yourselves to listen to other genres of music, trying to incorporate and experiment?
No, none of that. I think we listen. We're always listening to whatever and anything that comes to mind, etc. I think it's just we just go with what sounds good and what feels good. Sound and feel overcome any, insecurities or. We don't feel like we need to be anything but what we want to be. So I guess our evolution just comes from that, that we want to go anywhere and everywhere, and it doesn't matter what it is or how it gets there. It's just about, does it sound good and does it feel good?
Placing no limits, on or no boundaries on what you guys can achieve. I mean, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, I told you the mission statement is just to be creative and to do our very best and never sell that short. We never want there to be filler on a record. We want every single thing that we put out to be something that we deem our best in that moment,
So you guys are on tour with Deep Purple. You guys seems like it's been a whirlwind for you guys since the beginning of the year. You guys have been on a few different tours as well. What's it like going?
Yeah, we've been nonstop.
Yeah, I think you guys came originally, if my memory serves me correctly, you guys came around with Buck Cherry originally.
Yeah, we did 88 shows. The first with Buck Cherry, we did 7 with 6 with Slasher Miles Kennedy, and now we are completing 32 with Deep Purple.
How's the Deep Purple tour going? I mean, that's one of the forefathers of rock and roll right there.
I mean, of heavy rock and roll, yeah. They're an experimental rock and roll. They truly are icons, and they're all wonderful people. And I have nothing but good things to say about this tour. The crew's fantastic, and and it's been a hell of an experience, especially, how hard do you want it I think is the number one thing from this tour is, there are a lot of older people in the crowd, but every night I'm going to get them on their feet no matter what.
How is that? I mean, you're used to probably playing to different audiences. I mean, you mentioned Buck Cherry / now Deep Purple. Like you said, Deep Purple's crowd is an older crowd. How is that going and winning them over? I mean, I'm 44. You guys won me over, and I've yet to see you live. So I imagine people are feeling the same thing, because I've seen some of the live footage from you guys. Your stage presence is incredible. You can definitely get people moving. How is the response been all in all?
The response has been really good. I mean, nothing that I can really complain about. I mean, like I said, we get the crowd going every night, and it's our job to really warm them up and do a good job, and we go out there and we hit them as hard as we can.
Are there a lot of differences between touring with someone like Slash and then going on the Deep Purple tour? Is it just, how are the bands treating you, as an opener?
I think we've been treated very respectfully these last couple of, on every single tour. I think we've been treated with a lot of respect, and they've been, all of them, Buck Cherry / Miles Kennedy, and now the Purple crew have been absolutely nothing but great to us.
Where does Joyous Wolf go after the Deep Purple tour? Does it go back in the studio? Does it continue to play? What's on the agenda there?
We're going to go write the next record.
So no more.
Begin to, anyway.
So you guys got a break in touring, or a break completely, and you guys just going to go in the studio and write?
Yeah.
And when can we expect new Joyous Wolf materials? Obviously, we're wrapping up 2019. Whereabouts in 2020 can we expect new music?
I think you can expect it definitely by summer of next year.
And will it be a full length or EP again?
Full length.
Great. That's awesome. What has been, now you've done 3 big tours, right? You've toured with Buck Cherry / and Deep Purple. What has been maybe the biggest surprise for you guys being on the road, and what you didn't expect?
I think the biggest surprise has been, honestly, just that we've done it, I think.
In terms of getting placed on these bills with Deep Purple, I mean, I had to imagine that was probably an exciting moment to get selected to go out and tour with them.
I mean, it's an honor and a privilege, and with them being so kind and open and talkative, I think was a surprise, and yeah, I just was really trying to just do my job, and I know it's the same for the others, so it's not so much I told you, the biggest thing is just the fact that we've been able to do what we've done this year. We're going to do more than 130 shows by the time it's done. And, not a lot of groups touring this year can say that, and that makes me feel good about it,
Yeah, that is a lot of dates. When you look at a lot of your contemporaries, a lot of new bands that are coming out, they don't play nearly close to 130 shows so far this year.
Yeah, and it's I think it's a testament to who we are as a group. We work hard, and we're not going to short-sight anything, and if we're given the shot, if we're given a gig and it can be there and there's an audience waiting, we're going to be there.
Now, in terms of new music, right? I mean, you're part, in my opinion, of the new wave that's coming. In my opinion, you guys have separated yourself with your sound, with your stage presence, because I've seen a lot of new acts that have come around. Is it something that you guys are conscious about, knowing that there are a lot of new bands out there, that you do have to separate yourselves? Is that part of what you guys, part of your mission statement? You mentioned about not putting any limits on what your music sounds like and going and trying to push yourselves. Is it that way also, like with just your stage presence? Because let's face it, a lot of acts that are out there stand still. There's not a lot of movement. And I see stuff, from you guys, and it's a throwback to what was once a great period of time in terms of rock music.
See, I don't think it's a throwback at all, but I think it's really just doing things now.
Yeah.
I always think that's such a funny way of describing it. I mean, I guess, but I think there's been stage performers in every moment of every point. There's been like a lull. I mean, maybe not in the stylistically, but like the frontman of the Mars Volta was an extremely energetic frontman, and he was a hero of mine growing up. But I'm saying there's been plenty of that. I think the difference is, just to answer the original question you asked, was it's not necessarily a thought. The music provides everything. I was always someone who moved around, even in previous acts and stuff, and that was something that was always in me. And I liked dancing. I've always been a fan of dancing and moving to music, and the guys just provided something, like being in this band provided something different. There was a groove in it, and it made me it just sort of developed over time as we played, over these last 4.5 years of playing, and figuring out who we are, that's what this is. It's what it's always been. And it's just what my body wants to do, I guess, and the same for the others. We just want to give, and there's not really a conscious thought into like, hey, we need to be different. We need to do this. We need to do that. No, none of that at all. There's no conscious thought. I've been doing this ever since we started, and it's developed, but it's really been the same since the first show.
When I mentioned throwback, I grew up in the era of the frontman. I grew up in the era of the Daily Roths and the Freddie Mercurys and all that. And I do appreciate...
Well, I guess that must have been a throwback for them, too.
Well, I
say that because, Otis Redding, James Brown...
Well, that's where I was going.
Elvis Presley. I was saying, if we're going to keep doing that, we'll go all the way back to Calypso. I was saying, like, I have a problem with that term.
Well,
I really do. I think it's abused, and I think I think it damages a lot of what new acts are trying to do in rock music. I think very, very, very strongly about that, and I say it a lot. I say it in almost every interview because they say it because it's written down, and everyone tries to put a stamp on something, but we're just playing rock and roll music now. I mean, yeah, some groups are, more, harking back to particular things than say, Joyous Wolf, the boys. But at the same time, I think it's just a style,
Well, that's
and I feel like the more that we continue to do this nostalgia trip with it, these bands aren't going to develop, and it's going to kill rock and roll. I really do feel like it's going to kill it.
I absolutely agree, and when I say that, I don't mean it as a negative. What I mean is that you mentioned Elvis Presley and James Brown and Otis Redding in the beginning of the interview, and I see the live footage of your presence on stage, and I've had many episodes about what's killing rock and roll, and part of that is the rock fan not looking at newer music as its own. What I was just saying was, hey, you've got something and you're doing something that you call it a throwback, call it whatever you want, but it's a presence on stage in rock and roll that I felt prior to this new wave of new bands coming out was missing for a while. And it's refreshing to see something that you lock eyes on stage, and you can't keep your eyes off of you, Nick, because of the way you move, your swagger on stage, and that's a great thing. That's not meant in a slight or disrespect at all. I am a huge fan of new rock and the new bands that are coming out, and I just feel that you guys are one of the leaders, and because of that presence you have on stage.
I do appreciate the compliment, and again, as far as being, quote unquote, a showman, my whole thing is I feel a certain way, and by the end of it, I hope most of the crowd that I play to every night feels what I feel, you know, and you know that's something that I think has gone from a lot of popular music and a lot of music is that, again, and you look at the people who are successful, you know, like a perfect example is a girl like Billie Eilish, you know, a performer like her is, even if you don't like the music, and I'm not the biggest fan of it, you know, I'm not playing it myself, like chilling and kicking back and playing her music, you know, but what I can tell you is when I listen to it, I feel it. You know, when I listen to Adele sing, I feel it. When I listen to John Legend sing, I feel it. You know, when I listen to Sia sing, I feel it. You know, or even past whatever production stuff and whether the song is cornball or not doesn't really matter. If I can feel it, it's there, and that's still evident in who the most popular artists in the world are. You know, when you look at real talent, you know, in a time when people say you can't break, you know, you can't sell records anymore, Adele breaks the all-time record. You know, like that's evident that the feeling conquers everything else. You know, you could have the most perfect pop radio song in the world, but if the person singing it doesn't believe in it, doesn't feel it, doesn't have it in them, you're gonna know. You're gonna tell. The mob always knows, you know. Well, they just know. The people know.
Yeah, I mean, you can't BS your way through it. It's the connection people get from it.
Exactly, yeah. And I think 150% a reason why I have any merit, and I mean that lightly, because I don't like to pay too much attention to what people say in general, because it's really not about what people are saying, or whether it's good or bad or anything, you know. But the only reason why I think I have anything like that is because I believe in it. I mean it. These things that I'm singing to an audience and to anyone who listens to our music is my truth and my feelings.
And people are reacting. You know, when people I talk to, when we talk about new music, the band is always brought up. And, you know, that is because I think you guys are unique and doing something different that's not being done right now, where is just an incredible sound. The songs are, like I said in the beginning, are absolutely incredible. The depth, the lyrics, the arrangements are, I can't say enough about it. And you guys have tapped into something that I think is going to propel you to the top of what the new movement of rock music is.
I really hope so. You know, I really hope that people know that we appreciate the fact that they bring us up in the conversation, because I think that's the difference between us and a couple of other groups out right now is we haven't had a lot of the same opportunities, and I don't mean that in any other way. I'm nothing but proud, you know, of the other groups that are out there doing it. You know, whether I'm in love with the music or not isn't the point. It's the fact that they're out there playing rock and roll. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think people take that the wrong way. I support anyone who picks up a guitar and anyone who wants to venture into the genre of rock and roll. I am fully supportive of not just rock and roll, of every music. If you feel it and it's you, then that's fantastic, and you should do it. And I support it, no matter what. If it means something to you, and most definitely, I am proud, you know, of all of these bands going out there and really giving it, you know, and in their own way, and you know, and I'm just happy to say that we've done it in our way, and it has been our way, and it's been grassroots, one person at a time. You know, like we haven't gone to radio, we haven't done any of that kind of stuff yet. And but that is on the horizon, I can say, with a smile, and we've really proven our worth as an act, and I think we have made our place known in this new section, this new chapter, I suppose. And I'm quite happy and honored to even ever be considered worth talking about when it comes to that.
You are, man. I mean, you guys have connected with a lot of people. I always look at my son, who's 14, as a gauge of what's coming. And when I hear your music bellowing from his bedroom and shaking the walls, I know you guys are doing something right.
Well, that makes me very happy. Your son's got great taste.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
I'm joking.
No, he does.
Really, yeah.
But that's, when I see him and I hear his friends listening to it, and I hear his, him and his friends talking about you guys, you always look at the younger generation that's coming up as to what's hot and what's not. And hey, you guys are connecting with people throughout all age groups, and I think you guys are connecting with the young people too as well. Your music is incredible, as I've said. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to listen to. And that's the thing too. You guys merge all these influences together throughout the decades, but it sounds unique. You can hear the influences, but it sounds different, and that's what's really cool about it.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do.
Well, hey, Nick, I know we got to wrap up here. I do appreciate the time. Again, I'm hoping to go see you guys here in Chicago late next week, or late this week, actually. It's Sunday already. So I hope to get out and see you, and more continued success for you guys.
Of course, man. You got it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Once again, this is Jay Scott. You're listening to The Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.